everybody. Welcome back to the Huddle. A little bit different cast tonight.
Yeah.
We wanted to, as part of celebrating the overflow of just an incredible Sunday.
Amazing.
I mean, there's months and months of work and preparation, meetings and talking and planning and rehearsing and all of that go into it. But at the end of the day, not every Easter is the most amazing Easter in the world, you know. Sometimes it just, for whatever reason, it doesn't all come together exactly like you want. This one, it seems so obvious that God put his stamp of approval on it and accepted the sacrifice. Man, I mean, it was just such a, I don't know, to me it was like the whole theme of it was God bringing us back as a congregation, as a people, bringing us back.
Yeah,
you know,
back to life.
Yeah. People had already put flowers on the headstone, and yet here it is. Here's what God has done.
Yeah, we were having to bring in chairs and usher people in. One comment I heard from a greeter was, people just kept coming and coming and coming. They were like, so yeah. I mean,
if I had realized in the moment, I probably would have made a big deal about, like, I'm sorry if you're having to sit on folding chairs, because that's just so cool.
Yeah.
That's so neat. But as part of celebrating that, we wanted to bring yet another member of the production team out from behind the cameras and to the front, because Heath leads the entire service, everything that happens on the platform, and everything really, ultimately, both in the platform and on the crow's nest, is all pretty much being cued by we hired you as our music director, but it has quickly escalated to worship and arts director, and so it's not even like that's a conscious decision to change your title and your role, and that's what you're doing. And so we've just had to start acknowledging it. But y'all, what maybe not everybody realizes is that's all happening from the drum cage. Talk to us about that. How do you do that?
It's funny you say that, because I was talking to Eric, and so a lot of people don't know, but during these productions, and really was more of a service, but he had to have the capability to hear me, so he knew cues and different stuff going on. And he was like, that's the first time I've heard you on the talkback. And he was like, I didn't realize like what was going on. And he was like, dude, you were given like lyrics, you were given like cues for the videos, like, all right, Eric is going to come in right here and stuff. And so, I mean, the first thing is we have an incredible team. You always talk about the crow's nest and stuff. Like, we all work hand in hand with Pastor Sean, Maylene, Eric, everybody that's up there, and then everybody that's on stage. We just try to keep constant communication going with what's going on in the services, even to the point that the Spirit's taken over. We need to know what's going on. So, yeah, it's the most fun job, I think, in the world. So I'm glad to be able to be a part of it. So
that's because you're cut out for it. Because I'm telling you right now, a lot of us would not be cut out for that.
Yeah.
Somebody called. They looked inside the drum booth one time. They saw I had an iPad. I have my MacBook. I have a launch pad firing off tracks. They were like, it looks like the Death Star, man.
It's Battlestar Galactica in there. It really
Meanwhile,
is.
Pastor Shules texting him like, "Hey, fourth song, check your phone."
All I have to do is go like that if I want the song to keep going, and he's probably already said it in the talkback mic because he sees us coming. It looks like magic, but it's not magic. It is some hard work and discipline and a well-oiled team.
Yeah.
And
our worship team up here every Thursday night, rehearsing and just putting their heart into it. I mean, it's incredible to see so many were up there worshiping together. And
I think a big thing for this specific one was that I love the fact that we can bring in other people. Like you said, we're always going to be a platform for local artists, all of that. But this was promised land worship.
Yes.
Right.
This was like our team, our volunteers, everybody that just makes it all happen every Sunday. We got to just showcase that for guests and
Yeah.
visitors.
So true.
It was really cool.
Well, and the atmosphere that you felt in the chapel, being in the congregation, worshiping, was so powerful and amazing. But walking onto that stage, you felt all the hours that had been poured in, the commitment of people sacrificing their evenings and things like that, because the atmosphere on that stage was so thick in the presence of God and the anointing from God. It was just amazing.
And let me just say too, you know, even the rehearsal before Sunday on that Thursday, there's a lot of stuff happening in the chapel and all of that, but it was hitting then because I remember Jonathan Brewster getting ready for his spoken word segment.
Yes.
Right.
And I could tell he was kind of holding back tears because he was already in it. Like it was just taking off from there. So
That
it was basically, we always try to say, you know, you can't take somebody where you've never been.
That's right.
So if we go there in rehearsal, then Sunday's the overflow of that. So yeah.
And that rehearsal ended in quite the prayer meeting.
Yes, that rehearsal ended in a declarative session of genuine spiritual warfare to back up, you know, one of God's people that's going through the fire. And so that's, I mean, it's not performance.
Right.
It's you do to an extent, you perform the song, but really not really. You it's not performance. It is showcasing, and it is demonstration. I think demonstration is one of the best words for it. Demonstration of the power of God in action. And it was pulsating on that platform.
Yeah.
It was pulsating. It was hard to even. I went way too long. I couldn't quit. Like it was so hard to move.
The atmosphere is just.
And for just a split second, when Jonathan Brewster was setting up his mic and getting ready to do that ridiculous spoken word segment, which I turned to Brooke at the end of that and said, we just heard more theology, like legitimate, robust, anointed theology than many churches will hear for the whole service, sermon included. I mean, that was just incredible. But when he first got up there, he paused.
I know.
Yeah.
For if you're feeling the responsibility of Easter sitting on your shoulders, that's a long pause.
I thought about that myself because there was, you know, you always talk about the behind the scenes stuff, and I knew, okay, this person is having to, you know, maybe move a pack or do something different, or we got to get the microphone. But I also feel like it was a chance for him to kind of just collect his thoughts going into it and feel. It was almost like it's okay to let it sit for a second because everybody just kind of immediately got on the same page. And when he started, it was like, whoa, like that's very.
You just brought out the point. Because when I brought it up to him afterward, hey, was everything okay when you went up? He said, oh yeah. He said, we had to change out the pack. And then he said, as I went to deliver the poem, whatever it is, slam poetry, I think. He said, when I went to deliver it, I just became so acutely conscious of the presence of God, the anointing, the thickness that was there. So really what happened was, briefly, there was a holy hush right in the middle of
Easter Sunday,
Yeah, which again is just that's special. That's something that has to be protected at all costs. That you could go to those lengths to produce an event, which I want to say something about the production in just a second, but to go to those lengths to produce an event, and then God is still, people are keyed in enough together and there's enough spiritual unity. You can't fake spiritual unity
Right.
in those moments. You either have it or you don't when
Right.
you go into a service like that. That's why everybody usually circles up and prays, but sometimes even then you're still carrying stuff and it just shows. But when you're in that kind of what the Bible calls one mind and one accord, man, the fact that God can still cut in and say, you know, this is a demonstration, but it's a demonstration of me, and
Right.
I want to interject. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amen.
And about the production, be watching, because I'm going to make sure we drop it kind of as our little single coming off of Easter. That'd be cool if in the coming years, if we're able to kind of have something coming out of Easter that we drop basically as a single that was
Agreed.
debuted
Yeah.
there.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a lot, you know, we literally have Heath, who is, I don't know if y'all follow him on social media. Not only is he a sponsored drummer and all that, but he's actually constantly getting, winning episodes of this great series where you wind up being, basically your contribution goes into the final outcome of pretty significant producers, you know, projects. And then, who is it? Is it Marcus or Billy that's then also sponsored? One of them is
Billy has, he's endorsed by D'Angelico Guitars. And so,
which I met his family.
yeah, oh, they're super
They're
nice.
so
Oh
amazing.
my word! We've
In
been sleeping
every
on them.
every special event, they come to support, but they also are like really engaged in the service and
Amazing.
That's awesome.
what's going on.
Coolest
Yeah.
people ever. You see
Yeah.
how we wound up with these people
Right.
we have.
Yeah.
Right.
But not only are you know, do you have all that going on? D1 just
Yes.
literally finished playing at the Grammys
Yeah.
with the artist that he helped to bring to the Grammys that took away 5 Grammys and
Yeah.
all that, John Batiste, and all those things are going on, and that's amazing. But in the middle of all of that, you were able to pull off, when we introduced a little bit of hip hop for that flair.
Right.
It is staggering to me that was not us using a track. That was
Right.
not. I watched you build that from the ground up.
Right.
It's a Ty Tribbett song, right?
Right. Yes.
You
Sir.
built that from the ground up to have our version,
Yeah.
our cover, and then our singers sang on it. And I do
That's
believe it
incredible.
is such a victory that we love to feature singers. As Heath just said, we believe part of a big piece of our function is to elevate godly talent and godly artists and all of that. So are always going to want to have guests, and we benefit because they're amazing.
Right.
But it wasn't. Bro, this was the people that God has put in this house
Yes.
doing what God has given them to do.
Yes.
So we're all just so worked up about it and having such a good time with it that we just wanted to dive into a few of the highlights for a few minutes. Just, you know, before you go on with your night, there's
Go into
classes tonight,
classes,
right?
yeah.
Before that, let's just take a few minutes and just dive in.
What if I told you I had a front row view for creation? And what if I told you I was part of the conversation? And what if the statement, "Let us make man," found in the first chapter of Genesis, had less inference on any false triune thought patterns wrapped in parenthesis, but more emphasis on your omnipotence and the significance that you would choose to include angels in your design? And what if I watched you paint the sky with stars that shine? Watched as you gathered the galaxies in your grasp and laid the foundations from fountains, crafted mountains from mayhem, and with the same hand scooped up the clay to breathe your ruach into the Adam. And the Adams of Adam were gathered and fathomed her. Entrance from his side as his bride became prize, as the flesh of his flesh she breathed and came life. And I Loved the way that she would compliment his completeness. I know some might soon see her as weakness, but his bride was strengthened as she stood strong by his side. But what if the Almighty watched quietly as that serpent slowly slithered and softly whispered lies, and from the first bite of the fruit another tree was being planted in the mind of the great I Am? And what if the fig leaf of that fig tree was but a first foreshadowing of the failure of man to try and cover themselves? But what if I were to tell you there was a much better blanket, but it would require a much better payment? What if before those who would have to paint blood over the doorpost, that very door would one day close its hands around the wooden beams? Would it seem it would hang on the hinges of 9-inch nail sharp syringes that would pierce the skin of his flesh until he cried, "It is finished"? And he took his last breath. And what if in the tomb they placed him in, it was sealed with the Father's stamp of approval? But what if in 3 days? I said, what if in 3 days that grace, I mean grave clothes they laid him in was folded neatly and placed in the proximity of those same angels, one at the head and one at the feet, that would cry, "He is not here. He is risen." And what if I were to tell you that all were forgiven? And what if the picture I am painting is more than a vision, more fact than it was fiction? And what if I were to turn to Yahweh at the apex of the formless and void with the question, what would you call this little lamb, this innocent little lamb that's now covered in blood? He said, "I call it a gift. And I wrapped it in love. His name is Jesus." I said his name is Jesus. And what if I were to tell you that alone was enough? And for that reason alone, we gonna be all right. It gets so hard just trying to figure it out, fighting doubt, trying to believe God, trying to watch the words of my mouth. Hit troubles come and go, even on the mountain high or the valley low. Never let your faith go. Never let your faith go. And I've been there before, so confused, don't know which way to go. I've been stressed out, world so crazy, might as well stay in the house. Fear trying to rise up. We got terrorists disguised, they look like us, but we know who we trust. Trust what I say, we gon' be alright. Y'all believe that? We gon' be alright. If you truly believe that promised land, get on your feet. We gon' be just fine. Alright. Say it, say it, say it. We gon' be alright. Say it, say it, say it. We gon' be alright. Say it, you say it. We gon' be alright. That's right. Alright. Come on. In these last days, times will come and it's here. Look at all the hate, senseless crime and murder, human trafficking, police brutality, bullying, rape, child molestation, shun the appearance of evil. I pray, let your kingdom come, let your will be done, and let your glory rise, let your sun shine through. Even through the storm and the rain, we will shout, cause we know after the night come, we gon' be alright. All things work together for good. In time again, probably I know we would. Don't worry about it. Don't lose no sleep about it. Just believe and receive everything that he promises. Come on. Oh, Jesus. Yes, we believe you. Don't worry about it. Don't lose no sleep about it. Just believe and receive every word that he promises. We gon' be alright. So lift your hands up. Yeah, just give him worship. Don't worry about it. Don't lose no sleep about it. He got everything under control. That's why I know that we gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. The battle isn't yours. It belongs to the Lord. Stand still. Don't you fight. We know we gon' be alright.
In 2 Corinthians, the Apostle Paul is talking about the things we undergo with a glad heart in order that the work of the Lord can proceed, and so that he's talking a lot about the lengths we go to make sure that no one can speak evil of the Lord because of us, or of the Lord's church because of us, and talking about not wanting to leave any stumbling blocks in people's way. And so he says they call us deceivers, but we know that we're true, and all of these, he's just running through a litany of it looks like this, but we know it's that, because we're willing to, if he was crucified for us, we're willing to let ourselves be whatever, used, abused, misused. We just don't want to do disservice to him. And in the middle of all of that, he says in verse 8, 2 Corinthians 6 and 8, amid glory and dishonor, this is reading from the Amplified, by evil report and good report, branded as deceivers and yet vindicated as truthful, as unknown to the world, yet well known by God and his people, as dying, yet we live, as punished, yet not killed, as sorrowful, yet always rejoicing, as poor, yet bestowing riches on so many, as having nothing, yet possessing all things. I believe that God is well pleased in what has gone on here. In overall, I believe there's a lot that God is well pleased with, but in this weekend specifically, I feel like God is well pleased, specifically because at a season when, by the way the world measures things, our church probably holds less of the assets of this world than we have in many, many decades. We are in the natural realm, we're all kinds of uncomfortable in ways that we're not used to being uncomfortable, and we feel like we're, squatters to an extent. And all of that stuff is true, and all of that stuff is just a part of the process. But I felt the favor of God shining down on us because we didn't treat Easter that way. We don't treat the Lord's church that way. It is true that we are waiting for the manifestation of some things, but we're not acting like we don't have them. I really believe that we are imperfectly, but we are doing the absolute most that we possibly can with what God has given us.
Amen.
And whoever's found faithful with a little will be trusted with
Yes.
much. So I just felt that so strongly coming off of Easter. We acted like we owned the world because we know that our Father does. And I think that's amazing.
Absolutely. Amen. And don't forget, we have classes right now. After all that, if you're not filled up, you got a little bit more room
That's so
overflowing.
good.
So jump into the men and women have their classes on Facebook Live and Zoom. And the youth have their class on Zoom only. So if you need the Zoom information for the youth class, email Pastor Randon and he will get you the Zoom meeting info.
And if you're not already watching the Huddle on YouTube, if you're not already watching streaming on YouTube, run over to YouTube, type in Promised Land Church. When you see our logo, because there's a few Promised Lands, so when you see our logo, like it and subscribe, turn on the notifications and all of that, because we finally hit the benchmark by the grace of God where we can focus our attention on growing that channel, and that's a huge part of becoming the platform we want to become. So there's some good news coming out about that very soon. We'll be talking to you more about it, but I just want I want to start putting in that good word tonight. So before you leave your device, just subscribe to the Promised Land Church channel and turn on your notifications.
Right.
Please.
See y'all Sunday.